Welcome to Monk's Temple. Please, settle in. Let the world outside soften for a while. There's no need to adjust your posture or force your breath into a certain rhythm. Simply allow. Allow your weight to be fully held by whatever supports you. Allow your gaze, if your eyes are open, to rest softly without looking for anything in particular. And as you settle, I invite you to imagine a vast, ancient forest just before dawn. It is dark, but not empty. It is alive with a silence that is not an absence of sound, but a presence of deep listening. You are not an intruder in this forest. You are a part of its quiet breath. This is where our journey begins. Not with a theory, but with a feeling. A feeling of being held within something older and wiser than the thoughts currently passing through your mind. Our subject is the ego. But we will not begin by defining it as an enemy. That would be like a tree declaring war on its own shadow. We will begin, instead, by understanding its nature. And to do that, we must look in an unexpected direction. We must look at the nature of sound. Consider a single, pure note from a flute. It hangs in the air of a quiet room. For a moment, it is everything. It has a beginning, a character, a vibration that you can feel in your chest. This note is like a single thought, a single feeling, a single sense of, I am this. It is distinct. It is knowable. But what allows that note to be heard? It is the silence that surrounds it. The silence before the note is blown, and the silence that swallows it again when the breath stops. The note is temporary. The silence is permanent. The ego, in the profound view of the Buddha's wisdom, is like that temporary note. Our suffering begins when we become so fascinated by the note, its pitch, its volume, its beauty, or its discord, that we forget the eternal silence that gives it a place to exist. We believe we are the fleeting sound, and in doing so, we lose touch with the boundless quiet that is our true home. I learned this not through complex philosophy, but through a faulty water pump. In my early years at a temple, I was tasked with drawing water each morning from an old, hand-operated pump in the courtyard. It was hard work. The pump would wheeze and complain. My mind, in turn, would wheeze and complain. This is tedious. I am cold. My shoulders ache. Someone else should take a turn. My sense of self was entirely wrapped up in the strain, the resistance, the story of the overburdened novice. One bitter morning, after a particularly stubborn series of pumps yielded only a trickle, I gave up. I sat on the frozen ground, defeated. In that surrender, the internal noise stopped. And in the silence that followed, I heard it, a faint, musical drip, 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 from the pump spout. Water, finding its own way out, drop by drop. I hadn't created that water. I hadn't invented its persistence. I was just the one who had been trying to force it into a roaring stream on my own schedule. My ego was the frantic pumping. My peace arrived when I stopped, and simply listened to the drip within the silence. I was not the pumper. I was the one hearing the water. This is the first, gentle pivot, shifting from being the actor in the drama to being the aware space in which the drama unfolds. Our first story is about a master weaver named Ilara. She lived in a village at the edge of a great desert. Ilara could weave tapestries so vivid that birds would try to fly into the skies she created on her loom. She was proud, and her identity was the image on the front of the tapestry, the complex scene of heroes and mountains and dragons that everyone admired. One year, a terrible sandstorm ravaged the village. It blasted through her workshop, and when it passed, her latest masterpiece was ruined, its front frayed and filled with grit. Heartbroken, she went to roll it up and discard it. As she did, the tapestry flipped over. For the first time, she looked intently at the back. There, she saw not the clear image, but a chaotic, beautiful, interconnected maze of threads. Colors crossed in unexpected ways. Knots held unseen strength. The story on the front was made possible by this hidden, tangled foundation. She realized she had spent her life identifying with the picture, the front-facing story of Ilara the Great Weaver. But her true substance, the thing that held the picture together, was this interconnected, messy, sturdy web of threads on the back. The sandstorm hadn't destroyed that. It had only obscured the front. Her ego was the prized image. Her true self was the entire tapestry, front and back, a single field of woven connection. She spent the rest of her years teaching others to see the back of the loom, to find peace not in the perfect picture, but in the woven whole. This story touches the Buddha's teaching of praditya samutpada, dependent origination. Nothing exists in isolation, not even the sense of I. What you call your self is a momentary picture woven from countless threads. Your body, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. It is a dependent phenomenon. To see only the front-facing picture is to live in the ego. To become aware of the weaving itself, the silent, interconnected process, is to step into wisdom. The ego is the isolated image. Silence is the awareness of the whole loom. If this way of listening, to the silence around the note, to the drip within the stillness, to the hidden weave behind the image, feels like a relief, a remembering, then you are welcome here. If you'd like this path of gentle inquiry to find you again, consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. It is simply a way to leave a lantern lit at this forest's edge, a quiet signal that you are welcome to return to this space of listening whenever the world grows loud. Let us continue, then. Having touched the silence that holds the note, let's explore what happens when we forget that silence. The ego's most common state is one of perpetual motion, a seeking. It is rarely at rest. To understand this, I want you to imagine a vast, placid lake at midnight. The water is so still it perfectly mirrors the moon and the stars. This lake is your mind in its natural, reflective state, calm, clear, and receptive. Now, imagine you are in a small boat on that lake. You have a single oar. For no reason you can recall, you begin to paddle. Not to go anywhere, for you are in the center of the lake. You simply paddle to stir the water. You create ripples, then waves, then a churning circle around your boat. The perfect mirror is shattered. Now, you see only broken fragments of light, chaotic movement, and your own straining effort. You grow agitated by the very turbulence you are creating. This is the ego. It is the compulsive paddling in the middle of the perfect, silent lake. It believes it must do something, must stir things up, must create ripples of thought, of planning, of worrying, of remembering, to prove it exists. It mistakes this activity for life itself. The Buddha taught that this aimless churning is dukkha, the fundamental unsatisfactoriness that colors so much of human experience. Peace is not found by paddling faster in a different direction. It is found by resting the oar. By letting the water become still again, so it can once more reflect the whole, unchanging sky. I saw this not on water, but in a man I met in a city park. He would walk the same path every day I sat there, his face a knot of concentration, his steps rapid and urgent. He was not walking for pleasure, he was walking as if pursued. One day, his shoelace came untied. He stopped, bent down, and as he fumbled with the lace, his frantic rhythm was broken. He stayed there, crouched, for a long moment. When he stood up, he didn't immediately resume his hurried pace. He looked at a tree beside the path as if seeing it for the first time. He took a deep, audible breath. For maybe 30 seconds, he was not the man running from something. He was just a man, tied to a tree by his gaze, breathing. Then the spell broke, the mask of urgency returned, and he hurried off. But I had seen it. The oar had rested. The water had, for a few heartbeats, begun to still. Our practice is to notice the compulsive paddling, and to choose, in small moments, to let the oar rest on the gunwale. To let the mind reflect what is, rather than churn with what might be. Let me tell you a story about a famous translator, Kalen. He was a linguistic genius, fluent in a dozen ancient languages. His life's work was the translation of a monumental spiritual text, said to contain ultimate wisdom. He labored for decades in a book-crammed tower, obsessed with finding the perfect, definitive translation. He believed that when he found the perfect words, he would finally grasp the truth, and his name would be immortalized. His ego was the quest for the perfect rendering. He grew old at his desk, surrounded by countless drafts, each one rejected for some minor flaw. He became bitter, arguing with other scholars, protecting his work. On his deathbed, the final manuscript lay incomplete on his lap. A young novice, attending him, asked in a whisper, "Master, what is the core message of the great text?" Kalen, his voice faint, began to recite from memory the original ancient verses. As he spoke the beautiful, sonorous sounds he had spent a lifetime trying to cage in modern words, a profound calm came over his face. He was not translating. He was simply letting the ancient sounds vibrate in the air. In that moment, he wasn't Kalen the translator. He was a conduit for a song. He died with a slight smile. The novice realized the master had spent his life paddling furiously in the middle of the lake of the text, trying to control its reflection, when the peace he sought was in simply listening to its original, silent meaning. The truth wasn't in the perfect translation, it was in the direct experience of the sound, the feeling it evoked, the space it opened. An experience that needed no intermediary, not even a brilliant linguist. This story points to a deep Buddhist principle, the danger of conceptual proliferation. The Buddha warned against getting lost in the prapanca, the tangled web of concepts, opinions, and mental commentary we layer onto direct experience. Kalen's ego was lost in the prapanca of translation, missing the direct experience of the text's essence. Our own egos do this constantly. We have an experience. A sunset, a touch, a taste, and immediately the paddling starts. This is beautiful. I wish I could photograph it. It reminds me of that other time. I should come here again. We stir the lake with our commentary, losing the pristine reflection of the experience itself. The practice of mindfulness is the practice of resting the oar. It is to see the sunset without the internal label maker. To taste the food without the food critic. To feel the emotion without the dramatist. In that pause, the world stops being a subject for analysis and becomes a direct, intimate presence. So, how do we rest the oar? We start with the body. The body is always in the present moment. It is your anchor to the still lake. Right now, as you listen, can you feel the air passing in and out of your nostrils? Not control it. Just feel it. Cool on the in-breath, slightly warmer on the out-breath. That sensation is happening right now. It is not a memory or a plan. The ego can't easily cling to it because it's too simple, too immediate. For these few seconds, as you feel the breath, you are not paddling. You are allowing the lake of your awareness to simply reflect the sensation of breathing. Any thought that pulls you away is just another invitation to pick up the oar. See it. And gently, without judgment, return to the feeling of the breath. This is not a discipline of force. It is a discipline of gentle, persistent return. You are training yourself to prefer the reflection of the moon on still water to the exhausting labor of churning waves. In this simple act, you are not building a new self. You are discovering the silent, reflective ground that has always been there, beneath all the striving. You are remembering how to be still. To continue is to venture deeper into the forest, away from the well-trodden paths of doing and into the quiet clearing of being. We've seen the ego as a note forgetting the silence, as a weaver obsessed with the front of the tapestry, as a frantic paddler on a still lake. Now, let us examine its most convincing illusion, control. The ego believes, with a desperate fervor, that it is at the helm. That it is making choices, steering the ship of life, and that happiness depends on its skill as a captain. This belief is the source of immense tension, like a clenched fist held up to the flow of a river. I'd like you to envision a leaf floating on a wide, gentle river. The leaf is carried by the current. It spins in eddies, drifts past banks, rides over small rapids, and rests in calm pools. Now, imagine that the leaf develops a consciousness. It begins to think, I am choosing to spin now. I am deciding to speed up here. I am avoiding that rock. I am journeying to the sea. This is the illusion of the ego in the realm of action. It takes the natural, effortless flow of life. The river of causes and conditions, of genetics, of culture, of circumstance, of infinite interbeing, and claims authorship of the journey. When the journey is pleasant, it puffs up with pride. What a skillful navigator I am. When the journey hits rapids, it crumples in shame and fear. I have failed. I've lost control. The leaf suffers because it believes the story of its own steering. The Buddhist teaching of anatta, or not self, gently corrects this. There is no permanent, independent navigator to be found. There is only the leaf rider, a temporary pattern of form and consciousness, arising dependent on the river and the wind, flowing because flowing is its nature. I confronted this illusion not on a river, but on a rooftop during a monsoon. I was young and tasked with securing a loose tile before the storm hit. I raced against the dark clouds, full of the importance of my mission. I will fix this. I will prevent the damage. I fought with the stubborn tile, my hands slipping in the first fat drops of rain. Just as I thought I had it, a ferocious gust of wind roared up the mountainside. It tore the tile from my hands and sent it shattering in the courtyard below. In that moment, soaked and empty-handed, my story of control shattered with it. I hadn't been the captain. I had been a leaf in a hurricane. The relief that followed the initial frustration was profound. The tension of, I must control this, dissolved. There was just the awesome, drenching power of the storm, and a small, humble witness standing within it. My job shifted from fixer to observer participant. I went inside, changed into dry clothes, and watched the storm do what storms do. The ego is the fixer. Wisdom is the one who knows when to work with the tile and when to bow to the wind. Let me share a story about a gardener named Silas. Silas cultivated the most prized orchids in the region. He controlled every variable. The exact humidity under glass cloches, the precise angle of filtered light, the mineral content of the water. He believed his will and knowledge forced the flowers into their exquisite beauty. His identity was the controller. One summer, a blight spread through his greenhouse. Despite all his science, his orchids began to wither. He fought harder, applying treatments, adjusting climates, his ego engaged in a war with nature. He grew ill with stress. Exhausted, he finally locked the greenhouse and didn't visit for a week. When he returned, braced for total loss, he found a strange sight. Among the dying orchids, a humble, wild morning glory vine had found a crack in the glass. It had snaked in, and now it was thriving, covered in vibrant blue flowers, drinking the spilled water and basking in the ruined climate control. Silas sat on the damp floor and laughed until he cried. He had spent his life trying to be the god of a tiny, perfect world, while life, in its robust, untamed persistence, was happening just outside his walls. The blight and the morning glory were the same teacher. They said, "You are not in control. You are a participant. Collaborate. Don't dictate." Silas never grew another orchid. He became a master of wild gardens, learning to guide rather than command, to suggest rather than demand. His beauty became more resilient and far more surprising. His ego had been the glass cloche. His joy came from breathing the open air. This is the profound shift from a mindset of control to one of harmony. The Buddhist path is often described as aligning with the Dharma, the true nature of how things are. It is not about imposing your will upon reality, but about learning to swim with the current of reality. This is not passivity. The leaf can orient itself. The gardener can pull weeds and provide water. But it is action without the fiction of a separate, sovereign controller. It is responsive, fluid, and ultimately, much more effective and far less exhausting. Your practice, when you feel that familiar clutch of, "I have to make this happen," is to pause. Feel the clenched fist in your mind. Then, imagine opening that fist and placing it palm down on the surface of a flowing stream. Feel the water push against your hand. You can press against it, fight it, or you can relax your hand and let the water flow around your fingers. You can even, gently, cup your hand and scoop some of the water, cooperating with its direction. This is the middle way between control and surrender. It is engaged letting go. Ask yourself, am I trying to steer the leaf, or can I feel the river carrying me? Often, the most intelligent action arises not from the anxious ego, but from the quiet space that opens when we stop pretending we are the sole author of the river. In this space, a different kind of intelligence emerges. One that is intuitive, connected, and at peace with not knowing all the answers. This is the intelligence of the forest itself, not of the lumberjack who plans to cut it down. Let us continue our journey into this forest of understanding. We have seen the ego as a note, a weaver, a paddler, and a leaf believing it steers the river. Each of these views reveals a clinging to something temporary and a forgetting of the vast, silent background. Now, we turn to one of the ego's most powerful and painful disguises, the wound. The story of injury. The narrative that begins, "This was done to me, and therefore I am." Imagine an ancient, beautiful clay pot, fired and hardened. It is whole. It sits in a niche, holding light. One day, it is knocked from its place. It falls and cracks. A fine, hairline fracture runs from rim to base. The pot is still functional. It can still hold water. But its story has changed. Its identity is now inextricably linked to the crack. When someone looks at it, the pot, feels, they see only the flaw. When it holds water, it worries the crack will weep. Its entire sense of self is organized around this line of brokenness. It has become the cracked pot. This is how the ego metabolizes pain. It takes a moment of suffering, a betrayal, a failure, a loss, a hurtful word, and it doesn't just remember it. It builds a monument around it. It makes that event the foundational story of who I am. The Buddha taught that clinging to suffering is as much a cause of dukkha as clinging to pleasure. We cling to our wounds because, perversely, they give us a solid, definable identity. I am the one who was abandoned. I am the one who failed. I am the victim of that injustice. This identity feels real, and in its shadow, we feel justified in our anger, our withdrawal, our fear. I carried such a pot for many years. In my youth, a teacher I revered publicly dismissed a sincere question of mine as foolish. The laughter of the others was a physical blow. The crack formed instantly. I am not intelligent enough. I must hide my curiosity to be safe. For a decade, that crack defined my learning. I was silent when I had questions. I chose solitude over the risk of exposure. I was the cracked pot, carefully holding only the smallest amount of water so as not to stress my flaw. Then, during a long period of silent manual labor, repairing a stone wall, I spent day after day fitting rocks together. Some rocks had cracks. The old mason teaching me didn't discard them. He'd examine the fracture, then place the stone so that the crack was buried deep within the wall, where it became part of the structure's hidden strength. He said, "The crack isn't the problem. Thinking the rock is only the crack is the problem. Every stone has lines. You build with the whole stone." That night, I looked at my own crack. I had built my entire inner wall around it, making it the facing stone of my identity. What if I could reposition it? Not deny the hurt, but place it within the larger structure of my being, where it was just one line among many, lines of resilience, of kindness learned, of patience earned. The story of the fool began to lose its power. It became a historical fact, not a living definition. The pot was still cracked, but it was no longer only the crack. Let me tell you a story about a bell. In a forgotten temple courtyard stood a great bronze bell, untouched for a century. It was covered in a thick, hardened patina of green corrosion and bird droppings. Villagers passing by would say, "That's just a lump of old, dirty metal. An eyesore." The bell's identity, in the minds of all, was the useless, ugly lump. It had forgotten it was a bell. One day, a great storm passed through. A branch from an ancient tree broke and fell, striking the bell with a mighty crash. A deep, resonant, glorious gong reverberated through the valley, clear and pure, shaking the dust from rafters in homes a mile away. People poured into the courtyard, astonished. The lump was gone. In its place was a bell, revealed by the strike. The corrosion was still there, but it could no longer conceal the bell's true, resonant nature. Our wounds, our cracks, our layers of protective corrosion, they are real. But the ego makes the mistake of thinking we are the corrosion. We believe the story of the lump. The wisdom of the Buddha is the branch that strikes us, not to cause more pain, but to remind us of our fundamental, resonant nature. That nature, awareness, compassion, emptiness, is never damaged by the cracks or the corrosion. It is what sounds through them. The suffering is in identifying with the disfigurement and forgetting the music that is our essence. This points to a radical aspect of the Buddha's teaching, the possibility of freedom within suffering, not from it. We cannot prevent the pots from cracking. Life will see to that. But we can cease to define ourselves by the fractures. We can learn to ring true despite them, even because of them. The crack can become the unique path through which our particular sound travels into the world. So how do we reposition the stone? How do we allow ourselves to be struck into resonance? We practice a fierce, gentle honesty. When the old story arises, I am unworthy because of X, we pause. We acknowledge the story. Ah, the story of the cracked pot is here. We do not fight it. We simply recognize it as a story, a thought form, not the truth of our being. Then, we feel the actual, present moment sensation in the body. Where is the pain of that story held? A tightness in the chest. A hollow in the stomach. We breathe into that space, offering it kindness, as we would to a bruised child. We are not the bruise. We are the compassionate awareness holding the bruise. In that shift, from identifying as the wound to holding the wound in awareness, the monument begins to crumble. The ego's favorite fortress is abandoned. We are no longer the prisoner of our past. We become the spacious, silent temple in which all history, including its pains, is allowed to be, without ruling. This is the path of healing that goes beyond fixing. It is the path of wholeness that includes brokenness. It is the discovery that you were always the bell, and the crack is just part of the instrument that makes your sound uniquely yours. To continue is to accept an invitation into the most intimate space of all, the present moment, where all these concepts of ego, river, leaf, and bell either dissolve or come vividly alive. We have explored the ego's illusions from many angles. Now, let us turn towards what is not an illusion. Not a concept, but an experience so immediate it is often overlooked, the fact of being aware. Before you are a person with a name, a history, a collection of wounds and dreams, you are awareness. This is not a philosophical statement. It is the most fundamental datum of your existence. You are aware of reading these words. You are aware of sounds in the room. You are aware of sensations in the body. This aware space is the true monk's temple. It is the silent ground from which all the noise of the ego arises and into which it retreats. I want you to try a simple experiment. For the next 30 seconds, let everything be exactly as it is. Don't try to change your thoughts or your breath. Simply notice, I am aware. Thoughts may come. Notice, I am aware of that thought. A sound may arise. Notice, I am aware of that sound. An emotion may stir. Notice, I am aware of that feeling. In this simple noticing, where are you? You are not in the thought, the sound, or the feeling. You are the aware space in which they are all happening. This space has no age, no gender, no story. It was here when you were 5 years old, thrilled by a firefly. It is here now. It will be here in your final moment. The Buddha called this capacity Siddha, the heart-mind, the luminous knowing nature. It is not your property. It is what you are. The ego is the collection of things that appear in this space, mistakenly claimed as me and mine. I had a powerful glimpse of this during a period of enforced idleness after an injury. Confined to a cot, with pain as a constant companion, my usual ego activities, planning, doing, fixing, were impossible. I was left with just the pain, the four walls, and the slow passage of light across the floor. For days, I raged against it, the ego screaming against its cage. Then, one afternoon, exhaustion won. I stopped fighting. I just stared at a patch of sunlight on the plaster wall. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't analyzing its color. I was just seeing. And in that pure, wordless seeing, something remarkable happened. The sense of me as the injured person in pain receded. There was just the seeing, the light, the texture of the wall. The pain was still present, but it was no longer my pain in the same gripping way. It was a sensation occurring in the field of awareness. For perhaps a minute, I was not a patient. I was awareness itself, experiencing the phenomena of a body, a room, and light. It was the most profound peace I had ever known. The ego had not been defeated, it had been seen through. It was like being the ocean and realizing you've been afraid of one particular wave your whole life. Let me tell you a story about a librarian in a city of whispers. In this city, every thought ever thought by its inhabitants hung in the air as a faint, persistent whisper. The people were plagued by the noise. They built a vast, central library of silence, and appointed a keeper. His job was to maintain one perfectly silent room at the library's heart. The first keepers tried to fight the whispers. They would shout for silence, which only added new, angry whispers to the air. They grew frantic and resigned. Then came a keeper named Lin. On his first day, he entered the silent room, sat in its center, and did something novel. He listened. He listened to the distant whispers not as an intrusion, but as mere sound. He noticed the silence between the whispers. He noticed the silence that allowed the whispers to be heard. He tended to that silence, not by battling sound, but by resting in the listening itself. Over time, a miracle occurred. The room did not become free of whisper sounds. Instead, anyone who entered it would, like Lin, naturally settle into the listening. They would hear the whispers, but they would hear them from the place of the silence between them. The whispers lost their power to disturb. They became like leaves rustling outside a window, present, but not personal. The Library of Silence became famous not for its absence of sound, but for the profound, peaceful listening it cultivated. Lin's genius was understanding that silence isn't the enemy of sound. It is its womb and its sanctuary. Your mind is that city of whispers. Your thoughts are the constant, often chaotic, murmur. The ego is the frustrated keeper who tries to shout them down, who believes it is the whispers, or who is tormented by them. Wisdom is the practice of becoming Keeper Lin. It is to sit in the center of your own awareness and simply listen. To notice the thought, and then to notice the aware space in which the thought floats. That space is silent, even when filled with noise. It is untouched, even when turbulent emotions pass through. Your true practice is not to achieve a blank mind. It is to become so intimately familiar with the silent, listening awareness that is your core that the content of the mind ceases to be a problem. The whispers are allowed to whisper. They are no longer your masters, because you have discovered you are the vast library that contains them all. This shifts everything. Meditation is no longer a chore where you fail because you have thoughts. It becomes a homecoming, where you succeed simply by remembering you are the space for thoughts. Anxiety is no longer a dictator, it is a particular kind of whisper you can hear from the quiet center. Joy is not something to cling to, it is a beautiful whisper you can fully enjoy without fear of its passing. You are freed from the tyranny of the content by abiding as the context. So now, in this moment, can you feel it? Don't think about it. Just feel. Behind the words you're hearing, behind the sensations in your body, there is a simple, knowing presence. That is you. Not the story of you. The awareness reading the story. Rest there. Even for a few heartbeats. That is the door to the temple. And the door is always open. To continue is to cross the threshold of that open door. We step out of the antechamber of concepts and into the main hall of direct experience. Here, in the temple of awareness, we encounter a practice that is both the simplest and most challenging of all, non-resistance. This is the art of meeting life not as an opponent to be wrestled, a problem to be solved, or a treasure to be captured, but as a guest to be welcomed. The ego is the master of resistance. It says, this shouldn't be. I don't want this. This must stay forever. Non-resistance is the silent, allowing quality of awareness itself, which makes room for everything without being stained by anything. Picture a deep, clear mountain pool fed by a waterfall. The water is constantly moving, yet the pool remains, a vessel of perfect receptivity. Leaves fall in, it holds them. Twigs tumble down the waterfall, it accepts them. The sun warms it, clouds darken it, fish swim through it. The pool does not resist a single one of these occurrences. It doesn't cling to the sunlight or reject the cloud. It allows all conditions to pass through its nature, which is to be clear, deep, and at rest. Our natural mind is like this pool. The ego is the one who stands at the edge shouting, no leaves. Only sunlight. Go away, twigs. I want the fish to swim in a perfect circle. This shouting is the energy of resistance, and it is the very thing that churns the pool into mud. The Buddha's path is a path of cessation, nirodha. The cessation of this resistant craving and aversion. Peace is not a special condition of only sunlight and no leaves. Peace is the inherent clarity of the pool that remains while leaves and sunlight and twigs come and go. I learned this from a stone, or rather, my reaction to one. For months, I had a favorite spot for morning meditation, a smooth, flat rock overlooking a valley. It was my anchor. One morning, I arrived to find a large, jagged, ugly stone sitting squarely in the center of my smooth rock. Irritation flared. This shouldn't be here. Who put this here? It's ruined my spot. My meditation that day was a war with the jagged stone. I tried to ignore it, which was just resistance in disguise. The entire sit was consumed by my non-acceptance of a simple geological fact. The next day, the stone was still there. Frustrated, I decided to move it. I strained, grunted, and finally heaved it off the side of my rock. It tumbled down the hill with a satisfying crash. I sat, victorious, and closed my eyes. And all I could feel was the adrenaline in my limbs and the story of my struggle. The peace was gone. I had won the battle and lost the war. The following day, humbled, I approached again. The jagged stone, of course, was gone. But in its place was a patch of raw, scraped earth and several smaller, sharp pebbles. My victory had created more debris. I sat amidst the mess, and for the first time, I simply let it be. I allowed my irritation about the mess to be there. I allowed the memory of my struggle to be there. And in that total allowance, without trying to achieve a pristine state, the peace returned. The pool of my mind became still, not because the conditions were perfect, but because I had stopped resisting the conditions that were present. The jagged stone had been my greatest teacher, and I had failed to welcome it. Let me share a story about a gatekeeper. There was a walled city with a single gate, and the gatekeeper, Bren, took immense pride in his discernment. He would admit only those he deemed worthy, the prosperous, the well-spoken, the clean. He turned away the ragged, the sorrowful, the strange. He believed he was protecting the city's peace. But the city grew stifled, sterile, and tense. The very peace he sought to guard became brittle. One season, a plague of sorrow fell upon the land. People from all walks, broken and weary, converged on the gate. Bren, following his old rules, tried to turn them away, but their numbers were too great. In exhaustion, he collapsed at his post. As he lay there, unable to resist, the people simply flowed around him and into the city. To his amazement, the city did not collapse. Instead, a transformation began. The sorrowful were comforted in the squares. The ragged were given shelter and mended clothes. The strange brought new songs. A deeper, more resilient peace emerged, a peace that included sorrow and mending, not one that excluded it. Bren's ego had been the selector, the resistor, believing peace was fragile and required protection. Wisdom, born of exhaustion, was the open gate. It understood that true wholeness, the wholeness the Buddha called Samma, complete, perfect, must include all of life, not just the pleasant fragments. Your daily life is full of jagged stones and unwelcome guests, a delayed train, a critical comment, a sudden headache, a plan gone awry. The ego's instinct is to resist, to protest, to wage a silent, or not so silent, war. This war is the source of your secondary suffering, the layer of frustration and anger you add to the original event. The practice of non-resistance is not about apathy. It is not saying, "It's fine that the train is late." It is saying, "The train is late." Resistance to this fact is creating tension in my body and mind. Can I let go of the resistance and simply be with the fact, and then, from a clearer space, decide what to do next? You drop the war. You feel the frustration in your body, you breathe into it, you allow it to be. You become the deep pool for that feeling. And from that pool, a calm, intelligent response can arise. Maybe you read a book, maybe you call to inform someone, maybe you just watched the sky. The action is the same, but the inner civil war has ceased. This is the profound middle way. It is not passive acceptance of injustice. It is active acceptance of reality as it is in this moment, which is the only stable ground from which effective, compassionate action can spring. You accept the feeling of anger so you don't act blindly from it. You accept the fact of the delay so you can use the time wisely. You accept the presence of the jagged stone, and in that acceptance, you find you can sit beside it, or even see its strange beauty. Try it now. Find a minor irritation in your current experience, an itch, an ache, a background noise you dislike. Instead of wishing it away, turn your attention toward it with gentle curiosity. Don't try to change it. Just be the aware space that holds this sensation. Welcome it as a temporary guest in the field of your experience. Notice what happens to the irritation when it is met with welcome instead of resistance. The guest may stay, but it often loses its power to disturb the household. This is the path of the open gate. It is how we handle the ego, not by locking it out, but by seeing its resistance, and choosing, moment by moment, to open the gate wider, until everything belongs. Continuing our journey, we find ourselves in the heart of the city with the open gate. A question naturally arises: if we are not the gatekeeper, if we are not the selector or the resistor, then who is acting? If we are the deep pool, the silent awareness, the open sky, what becomes of our will, our choices, our drive to create and care for others? This brings us to one of the most beautiful and subtle turns on the path, the shift from self-powered action to life-flowing action. The ego operates from a sense of lack. It acts to fill a hole, to build a monument, to defend a territory, to become something it believes it is not. Action born of the ego is heavy with effort and anxiety, for its success is tied to the fragile story of me. There is another kind of action, one that feels more like being danced than like dancing. Imagine a hollow bamboo flute. It is empty, clean, and still. When a musician brings it to their lips, they do not fill the flute with their own music. They provide the focused breath, and the flute, by virtue of its unique shape and emptiness, allows a specific song to be played through it. The music is not of the bamboo, it is of the wind. Yet the bamboo is essential. Its particular hollows and holes give the music its form. This is a metaphor for action in alignment with the deeper current of life, what some traditions call wu-wei, effortless effort. Your body-mind is the flute. Your ego is the idea that the flute itself is composing and playing the tune, puffing out its chest with pride at a beautiful note or collapsing in shame at a flat one. Wisdom is the recognition of being the instrument. The breath, the life force, the intelligence of the moment, compassion itself, flows through you. Your job is not to generate the music from your small self, but to keep the instrument clean, open, and receptive, so the song can flow clearly. For years, I misunderstood this. I believed spiritual work was about mustering immense personal effort to be patient, to be kind, to be wise. I would clench my jaw in meditation, strain to generate compassion for difficult people, and then feel like a hypocrite when I failed. The effort was exhausting and the results meager. The turning point came during a simple act of serving tea. A visitor to the temple was being deeply rude, criticizing everything. My ego was flaring, preparing a sharp retort. But my role was to serve. So, silently fuming, I simply went through the motions: heat the water, measure the leaves, pour. My attention was forced onto the physical acts. As I watched the steam rise in a delicate spiral, a thought arose not from me, but as if placed in my mind: he is suffering. It wasn't an analysis. It was a clear, calm knowing. When I handed him the cup, my eyes met his, and I saw not a rude critic, but a man with a desperate, hunted look. I said nothing. I just bowed slightly. The anger in him seemed to deflate. No great action of mine had caused it. I had simply performed the task of making tea, and in the space where my egoic reaction had been silenced by the ritual, a wiser intelligence had moved through. The action of serving was the flute. The moment of clarity was the music. I hadn't created it. I had gotten out of its way. Let me tell you a story about a ferryman. On a great, muddy river, there was a ferryman named Reese who had piloted his boat for 50 years. He knew every current, every snag, every seasonal shift. In his youth, he was a proud technician. He would battle the river, using sheer strength and will to hit the perfect landing on the far bank every time. He took credit for every smooth crossing and blamed himself for every bump. He aged, and his arms grew tired. One day, in the middle of a crossing, a storm blew up. Fighting it was futile. In a moment of surrender, he pulled his oars in and simply sat in the stern, his hand on the tiller, feeling the pull of the water and the push of the wind. To his astonishment, the boat, guided by his subtle adjustments rather than his forceful rowing, found its own path through the tumult and drifted gently into the landing place. It was more graceful than any crossing he had forced. Reese laughed. He had spent a lifetime wrestling the river, when the river itself knew the way. From that day, he became known as the effortless ferryman. He would row just enough, but mostly he listened, to the water, to the wind, to the weight of his passengers. His actions became responses, not impositions. His crossings became proverbs for peace. His ego had been the wrestler. His wisdom was the listener, the collaborator. This is the essence of right action and right livelihood in the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path. It is action that arises from a mind that is calm, clear, and unattached to results. It is not inaction. It is supremely effective action, because it is not wasted in internal conflict or the anxiety of self-promotion. It is the action of a gardener who understands the seasons, not one who tries to force roses in the snow. It is the action of a parent whose discipline comes from deep love, not from personal irritation. How do we cultivate this? We start by infusing our smallest daily actions with full attention. Wash the dish to wash the dish. Write the email to convey the message. Walk to reach the other side. In that full attention, the chattering commentator, the ego claiming ownership of the action, tends to quiet down. You become the action itself. Then, before a larger decision, pause. Ask not just, what do I want, but what is needed here, or what would serve life? Listen for the answer not in frantic thought, but in the quiet that follows the question. Often, the most compassionate, intelligent course of action will announce itself with a feeling of rightness, a sense of flow. It may be difficult, but it won't feel heavy with personal agenda. You will feel like the flute, not the flutist. This is the liberation of the actor. Your life becomes a dance with circumstances, not a war against them. You contribute your unique note to the symphony without the suffering of believing you must write, conduct, and be the sole audience for the entire piece. The river knows the way. Your task is to learn to feel its current, and to steer from that felt sense, not from a map drawn by your fears and desires. As we continue, the path naturally widens from the inner landscape to include the world of relationship. For it is here, in the mirror of other beings, that the ego faces its most relentless and revealing tests. All our quiet insights about sky, pools, flutes, and rivers meet their crucible when another person speaks, acts, or simply is in a way that challenges our story. The ego is fundamentally a boundary creator, and nothing highlights that boundary like other. Yet, the deepest teachings of the Buddha point not to a solitude of the self, but to a radical interconnectedness, praditya samutpada. To see this is to transform relationship from a battlefield into a sanctuary. Imagine two adjacent pools of water, separated by a narrow berm of earth. From the perspective of each pool, they are separate entities. They have their own surfaces, their own depths, their own reflections. If a stone is thrown into one, it ripples in isolation. This is the ego's view of relationship: you are there, I am here. My pain is mine, your joy is yours. The berm is the sense of a separate, solid self. Now, imagine a hidden truth: just beneath that thin berm, the water table is one. The two pools are fed by the same underground source. They are not fundamentally separate bodies of water, they are two surface expressions of one saturated ground. When a stone is dropped into one pool, the vibration travels through the shared water table and subtly, almost imperceptibly, affects the very molecules of the other. This is the view of wisdom. The separation is an appearance, a surface phenomenon. At the level of source, of consciousness, of life, of suffering, we are connected. Your pain, felt deeply, resonates in me not as pity, but as a recognition of a shared capacity for hurt. Your joy lifts me because it reminds the shared source of its capacity for delight. I encountered this not in a grand moment of unity, but in a petty clash of wills. Another monk and I were assigned to paint a long wall. We divided it in half. I was meticulous, careful, slow. He was swift, broad-stroked, a little messy. As I worked on my perfect half, I grew more and more irritated by his splatters encroaching on my side, by his finished, imperfect section. My ego was the pristine painter, and his work was an insult to my identity. The berm between us felt solid. Tension built until we were working in furious silence. Then, my hand slipped. A large, ugly drip of red paint ran down my perfect surface. I stared in horror. He saw it. He stopped. Instead of a smirk or a word, he walked over, took a clean brush, and with a few deft, fluid strokes, incorporated my drip into a simple, beautiful flower shape on his side of the wall, bridging the divide. He said nothing and went back to work. In that moment, the berm dissolved. My shame and his generosity were not two separate things. They were two movements in a single dance of human fallibility and grace. We were not two painters. We were the painting, happening. From then on, we worked as one organism, blending our styles without discussion. The wall, in the end, was strangely harmonious and beautiful. The ego creates the division. Shared action, and the vulnerability that makes it possible, reveals the common water table. Let me tell you a story of two mountains. In a range stood two great peaks, Kale, sharp and proud, forever scraping the clouds, and Liran, broad and forested, teeming with silent life. A deep ravine lay between them. They saw each other as opposites, rivals for the sky's attention. Kale disdained Liran's earthy quiet. Liran pitied Kale's barren exposure. For eons, they communicated only through the avalanches one triggered on the other's slopes, a relationship of cause and effect, but not kinship. Then, a great earth tremor shook the range. It did not bring the mountains closer. Instead, it did something more profound. It revealed the bedrock. For a moment, the shifting plates laid bare the truth that, miles below their separate peaks, Kale and Liran were rooted in the same continental plate, the same ancient rock, rising from a single, unimaginably deep source. The ravine was a scratch on the surface. Their separation was the thinnest of illusions. After the tremor, they did not speak. But when clouds gathered around Kale's peak, Liran's forests would receive the gentle rain. When the sun set, it would gild both their slopes in the same light. They remained distinct in form, but the war was over. They had seen they were not rivals, but siblings of the same deep earth. Our relationships are like this. We see the ravines of opinion, personality, and conflict. We feel the avalanches of hurt. Wisdom is the inner tremor that allows us to sense, if only for a moment, the shared bedrock of being, the common capacity for suffering and joy that underlies every human form. From that place, compassion is not a duty, it is the most natural response, like one hand instinctively reaching to soothe the other. This understanding transforms communication. You no longer listen to prove a point or to defend your position, the ego's way. You listen to hear the water table, to understand the underground springs of fear, hope, or pain from which the other's words flow. You speak not from the isolated pool of your own need, but from a care for the shared source. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means your boundaries become wise and compassionate, like the banks of a river that know they are part of the watershed, not fortresses against the sea. Practice this now, in memory. Recall a recent, minor conflict. See if you can, for a moment, step back from the story of what they did to me. Instead, imagine yourself and that person as two mountain peaks. Feel your own rootedness, your own stance. Then, imagine feeling down, through your own roots, into the shared ground of being. Imagine their roots doing the same. In that vast, silent, shared ground, does the surface conflict look the same? This is not to excuse harmful behavior. It is to free your own heart from the prison of taking everything personally. The ego takes everything personally because it believes it is only a separate pool. Wisdom knows it is also the water. When you relate from this place, relationships stop being a primary source of your suffering and become a field for your awakening. Every interaction is an opportunity to see past the berm, to feel the shared water table, to be the brushstroke that turns a clumsy drip into a flower. And so, we arrive not at an end, but at a silent clearing in the forest of our long exploration. We have walked through many metaphors. The sky and the weather, the note and the silence, the pool and the stone, the flute and the song, the mountains and the shared bedrock. Each was a finger pointing not to a new theory about yourself, but to the same, simple, undeniable fact: you are here. You are aware. Before the story of me begins, this is already true. The ego is not a thing to be killed. That is a final, violent story the ego would tell about itself. The silence that kills the ego is not an assassin's silence. It is the silence of a mother welcoming a frantic child home. It is the vast, allowing space that you fundamentally are, finally recognizing itself. When the frantic child, the bundle of thoughts, fears, and desires called I, runs into that silent space, it isn't destroyed. It is seen. It is held. And in that seeing, in that holding, its frantic energy naturally settles. It is seen as a movement within stillness, a sound within silence, a wave within the ocean. It loses its authority because something older, wiser, and infinitely more peaceful has been remembered as your primary identity. The Buddha's entire teaching is an invitation to this recognition. It is not a call to become a Buddha, but a call to realize you are, and always have been, Buddha nature, awake, empty, compassionate awareness, temporarily dreaming it is a person. Handling the ego, then, is not a handling at all. It is a ceasing to handle. It is a relaxing of the grip on the story. It is the profound, liberating surrender of the leaf to the river, not in despair, but in the trust that the river is what you are made of, and it is going home. So, as this dialogue concludes, let this not be a finish, but a true beginning. Your practice is no longer a set of techniques to achieve a future peace. It is a moment-by-moment homecoming. When you feel contraction, fear, or the rise of the old, familiar, I, story, pause. Don't fight it. Don't follow it. Simply feel the space in which it is happening. Feel the breath. Hear the silence underneath the noise. Ask gently, what is aware of this? And rest as the awareness that asks. No answer is needed. Abide as the question itself, which is a field of silent, open knowing. You are the sky, not the storm. You are the ocean, not the wave. You are the silence, not the note. You have always been home. You were just reading a very convincing, long, and intricate story about being lost. The story can continue. But now, you can read it from the place of the silent reader, not the desperate character on the page. And in that shift, everything is handled, because the one who needed things handled has been seen through. Welcome home to the monk's temple within you. It was never anywhere else.